All right. Good morning or good evening, Steve. How are you today?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Phil. How are you on this fine Australian morning?
Well, getting ready for a run in about an hour's time with my son, so that will be fun, I hope. So I'm
Well, good for you.
Still a bit fitter than he is, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I've been walking quite a bit, and now my plantar fasciitis is raising its ugly head, so I've got to back off on that for a little while. But you can just run twice as far and pretend it's for me. How's that?
Yep, no, I'll do that. And in the meantime, if you can drink a couple of beers for me in return,
I can do that. Not a problem.
Okay, that'll be great.
As you can tell, I need a beer.
Yep, I like your T-shirt. So maybe we'll have to have a T-shirt theme in the future.
Sounds like a plan. What are we going to talk about today, Phil?
Well, first of all, I was going to talk about I think one of the last beers you checked in, which took me by surprise, because if people don't know, you're what I would call a very dark beer specialist. It's got to be aged in oak barrels and all sorts of things.
The higher the alcohol percentage, the better. The more it looks like motor oil, the better I like it.
Yep. And then you checked in one that was very yellow or very orange, which caught me by surprise.
Yeah, so in Michigan, there's a brewery called Bell's Brewery, and they were a very early craft brewery. They were one of the first craft breweries in Michigan.
Yep.
And one of their most famous beers was called Oberon, which is what I checked in last night. And it's basically a Michigan version of a Hefeweizen. All the Germans will yell at me because I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but I'm sorry. I've never learned how to do that. It's not a true German Hefeweizen, at least not anymore. 10, 12 years ago, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But it's changed. But if you live in Michigan, it's almost mandatory that you drink at least one Oberon a year. So last night was my one Oberon for this year.
Okay, I look forward to next year. So today, what we're going to finish off was the topic we started a couple of weeks ago, which was about VC knowledge. And we covered off the first section, which was about education. And today, I want to switch more to the just information side. So what general sort of information is out there? Okay, you're looking at my fancy slide. So like I said, last time we talked about education. Today we're going to talk about information. It's, as I said, it's divided into 4 parts. So we've really got about books, CWG, SAP, and other things around YouTube and blogs. We'll start with books as the first one. And I'll just sort of zoom in on that. In the book world, pretty much the main books related to VC are around SAP Press. And there's also some independent books out there, which I'll talk a little bit about. But in the SAP Press, as we know, we've got the main variant configuration book, which is in English in edition 2, in German in edition 3. I don't think there's a plan for edition 3 to go to English at this point.
No, but for all of you folks that don't speak German, go to sappress.com and send them emails and see comments about translate version 3 into English, because it's SAP Press's choice whether they will translate it or not. It's not the publisher or not the editor's choice.
And it's a bit surprising, really, because the VC book, even though it's quite a niche product, really has been one of their best sellers, I thought.
Yes.
On the AVC side, I'm only really aware of the SAP Bytes book, just focusing on the AVC. I'm guessing, I think a couple of versions old probably now. I'm not sure if it's been updated to...
No, it was released in 2017. It is available on SAP Press. That's the only place it's available, in fact. The author is Stefan Kinsley. So it talks about, 1709 release and the corresponding cloud release. And Stefan moved on. He's still at SAP, but he's not in the AVC world anymore. And no one from SAP has republished that book since.
It would be good to see an updated, dedicated book at some point, which may come with the AVC starting to reach what I would call a stable version. It's got most of the functionality and with a bit of new stuff coming. Then on the other side, I did have a bit of a look to see if I could find anything on, call them independent publishers. The main one I found out there, a guy called Michael Peel, P-I-E-H-L. There's an ebook there on variant configuration. Look, that just reviewing table of contents looks quite comprehensive as well. And I think Michael does have a broad range of experience in VC, from what I can gather. So,
yeah, I think Mike is a longtime CWG member as well.
Yeah, so so that might be another good alternative. And so on the book side, that's probably the main ones that I'm aware of. Don't know if you've fallen across anything else in your travels.
There's a couple. There's another website. I can't even remember the name of it. That, I don't know, gosh, 10, 12 years ago, I published a couple articles too. They're on my LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
But those articles are available on the CWG website as well. So it's, you can get them for free,
yep,
or you can choose to pay for them. It's your choice.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
get a dime for them one way or the other.
Yep.
But no, like as you've said, Phil, VC is a niche topic, and not a lot of people deal with it.
We'll switch across to SAP offering just as a website. Probably two areas that I look at with SAP. We've got the SAP Help, and obviously they have the LOVC versions of SAP Help and AVC, both pretty much structured fairly in similar ways. I suppose my comment always on SAP Help, I class it as information, not so much education, because it's really a whole listing of information and topics and telling you information about something. It doesn't really teach you how to approach modeling or anything like that. So it's a good resource in that sense if you know what you're looking for. Good luck.
Phil, I notice you don't have OSS on here. Is that covered somewhere else, or should we talk about it now?
The reason OSS isn't on there so much is because it's behind the firewall, if you like. So this is more public facing, I suppose.
That's a great distinction, because to get to OSS, which is the online service support portal, you have to either be a customer or a partner. For example, when I retired, I lost my access to OSS because I'm no longer employed by a customer. However, as one of our friendly partners has put it during CWG, OSS is the real SAP help. To your point, help.sap.com is very high level. It doesn't really tell you how things work down in the guts of SAP.
Mm.
When you talk about the OSS notes for VC, those things really do talk about how it works in the guts.
Yeah.
So, but you're right, it's behind a firewall.
Yeah. And before we started the session, we were just having a quick discussion actually about OSS. You mentioned a couple of OSS notes that might be worth mentioning for those who do have access.
Those are things that actually SAP talked about on the CWG forums, and they're specifically related to the differences between the LOVC and the AVC, and those notes are 2795808 and 2876227. So if you have access, those might be a couple of good resources for you to look at the differences between LOVC and AVC.
Okay, and on the other side, there's the SCN, so the SAP Community Network, which from a VC point of view isn't as high profile resource, I find, amongst our community. But having said that, you do get in there, there is wiki pages all around VC, and there are people who do contribute to it. In my experience, it hasn't been the go-to place for VC, mainly because I think the CWG has been around for a lot longer and it has got the critical mass.
Yeah, SCN, if you're into FI or PP or something like that, SCN is a fantastic resource for you.
Yeah.
Primarily because there is no equivalent CWG for those modules within SAP.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, if you're looking for down and dirty details about what happens in LOVC or AVC, CWG is a place to go.
I think so. Yeah, what I've seen with VC on SCN, some of the content can vary, I suppose, is how I'd put it. So next one, we'll just go to the blogs and YouTube. I've probably missed an awful lot because I know at different times you have run blogs and probably mainly through the CWG.
Well, if you remember, there's a blog out there on whatever it is, WordPress, SAP Variant Configuration Technology, that I started as a result of meeting you.
Right. Okay.
But I have not posted to that blog for maybe 10 years because when I was writing that, CWG had no blogging capability. And then CWG developed a blogging capability, so I moved everything there.
With blogs and that, I've divided it into some of the things I do on Radiant Think, where I need to blog more than what I do. That's the source.
Time consuming, man. People don't understand how much time it takes to write these types of things.
There's things I want to add on there. It's mainly from an education perspective, but sometimes I broaden out into whatever I feel like. That's the beauty of having your own business in that sense. But the other useful blogs I've found is eLogic, who are pretty active in the CWG, and they put out blogs on various sort of niche topics at different times. So like they might dive into how bombs work with bomb groups, group bombs, and get into the nitty gritty of some of that. So they have some what I call quite useful practical topics.
Yeah, and you just struck a chord way back in the depths of my brain, which is, those memories are slowly fading. But at one point in time, eLogic had an ebook series on their website, and it was written by Lawrence Matuzik, who's the CTO. I think they're still there. So if you're looking at eLogic from a blog perspective, look at them from an ebook perspective as well. It's a very, very interesting series of ebooks that Lawrence wrote.
Their content is always worth having a look at because they're, down in the weeds really with hands-on things. So I'd recommend cruising past there from time to time. And I put us in here as well with configurable opinions.
You really think people will listen?
Look, who knows, Steve? From my point of view, we get to have a good conversation normally once a week. So
yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and we get to record it. So
anyway.
What's
this bigger picture thing you're talking about down here?
Well, in my mind, the thing I like about what we talk about is particularly from your side, I think you sort of zoom out and look at things from what I call a bigger picture point of view. So, obviously VC and ABC and things like that, they're very niche in lots of ways, but you sort of zoom out and say, well, how does it fit in relation to, S4HANA, and how does it fit if I'm transitioning to S4HANA and I'm a greenfield or a brownfield, and what is happening if I think about that in terms of SAP release timelines for their products in general and maintenance periods and things like that. So I found that really useful, just having those discussions where you start to go, well, yeah, I can't just think about this in isolation. I've actually got to, consider some of the broader things, and particularly if I was a project manager or someone who's responsible for the budget for some of these projects, I'd want to know some of the things about the edge, what's happening around the edges, what I need to consider. So that's what I call the bigger picture anyway.
So in that, I'm going to mention a guy that I follow. Well, I don't know if he's a guy or a girl. I have no idea. A person that I follow on Instagram, SAP Cult. He's hilarious. All he does is, or they do, is produce a meme,
Yeah.
and it talks about the various aspects of implementing or being engaged in SAP. And I think this person is a developer, because they typically come at it from a developer to a project manager mindset. But a lot of what they have to say also applies to VC and SAP projects in general. So if you want to laugh and you want some actual somewhat informative information, follow him on Instagram.
Yeah, okay, I'll note that one down. Now, it's funny actually, because yesterday I released my Think on the Run video blog as well. So I'm going a bit off topic here, and people may not have seen that. On the run, I talk about things that just pass through my mind as the oxygen disappears or energizes the brain or whatever. What I was thinking about with that is sometimes we start on a definite path, let's say of knowledge or of VC or whatever, and when I go running, my sense of direction is pretty hopeless, and I'm running in the bush, and so I'm thinking I'm running north, but I might be running south. So what happens is it takes you off on side paths. So in this case, for example, you've gone off on a side path of Instagram and found something that's you wouldn't expect to find, and you relate it back to VC, and it gives you different insights that you don't normally get, and then you get back onto your main path with that additional information. So
well, to tie that back up together is, I'm not a huge Instagram person, and that was actually, I was put onto this person by a millennial. And, we talked about millennials and the need to engage millennials. So you never know where information might come. And don't care how old or how young you are, don't close your mind to any source of information. It's just like this, the opinions may or may not suit your need, but you have to figure out what does and what doesn't. The key there is to soak in as many opinions as you can so you can form your opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and it's like ongoing learning. Sometimes you learn things that may bear no resemblance to, say, what you're doing with SAP, but 5 years down the track, suddenly it does. You look at the converging of technologies like web technologies into SAP, for example. Back in the mid-90s, you wouldn't relate the two together in the same sentence, and now it's so invasive and part of the package. So
to your point, we've diverged quite badly off of topic. So to bring us back,
yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about blogs or YouTube here, or you want to move on to the next section?
Yeah, next section. We're at CWG, really. So it's one of my favorite places, if you like. I've loosely divided this up into 3 areas. So we've got the conferences, we've got the forums, and we've got the sandboxes. Going back to the early conversation, there's blogs also on the CWG. In some ways, well, I'm not sure if they're used as much as what they should be.
They're not, and primarily because when the CWG, which is the Configuration Workgroup, upgraded to the latest version of Drupal, blogs somehow got turned off for most people. It used to be everybody had a blog, but they got turned off. And the thing about the Configuration Workgroup is it's a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization. So the people that are working on it actually have real, honest-to-God day jobs that they have to do. So, when something like that happens, it's not a top priority for them to fix it, and I understand that completely. A very little known but very informative section of the CWG website is called the CWG Review, and that has a lot of articles by a lot of very smart people that take you deeper than a forum post or a blog can.
Yeah.
But you have to dig for it on the menu side. CWG is a fantastic resource.
So briefly, I just want to cover off what's there for people who may not know. So the forums are very active and used. And if you don't have, say, OSS access and you have a problem, often you'll get an answer on the forums. And a lot of modeling questions are put up by people and often are answered sometimes within 5 minutes or within a day. Over the years, I've used them to find out information, and I've also used them to provide information like yourself. You're you've been pretty active over the years on their conferences. So obviously this year was quite different. We're just closing out the virtual conference, but typically, if back in the normal world, we've had a conference in Europe, normally around April, May, and one in the US, normally around October. We've been to both of those on a number of times, and extremely valuable conference to go to, and not as expensive as a lot of the other SAP ones.
Yeah, that's a real good point. Is, the last time I went to a Sapphire, for example, the conference entrance fee was like $2,000 US.
Yeah.
And for CWG, the conference entrance fee is like $600 US.
Yeah.
And if you're into VC, you get 50 times more information at a CWG conference than you will a Sapphire or a Tech Ed for that matter. I've been to Tech Ed as well and been the only person that presented on VC. But if you go to a CWG conference, that's all you're going to talk about is variant configuration, advanced variant configuration, solution sales configuration, and what SAP is doing with them.
Agree, and which is a bit sad that I suppose Sapphire doesn't have some more content, but obviously that's a huge, well, Sapphire is SAP presenting everything, not, and so in that everything world, some of the niche areas don't get the attention to detail.
But to your point, that's a shortcoming that I see in SAP's marketing, and I've talked to SAP about this before. I think they're very much failing in that regard because they, if you want to see VC at Sapphire, you have to go into the IM&C booth because that's about the only place it is.
Yeah.
Or there is a CWG affiliated track at Sapphire that now is buried in the customer experience, and they only get 6 presentation slots. So right. It's ridiculous. SAP wants to sell this, and yet it's almost like they don't care. That's
the way SAP rock and rolls, really, on these things. The other big thing that the CWG does offer is sandbox systems. So we've had one for ECC for quite a while. It's probably a few years old in terms of updates, but still quite functional, still lots of models in there that people have created and tested, plus some SAP standard ones in there as well.
Multiple people have actually given a presentation at a CWG conference and built a model in the sandbox.
Yes.
So you can actually look at the presentation and then go experience it literally in the sandbox and walk through it step by step by step and see exactly what's happening. It's a resource that I've never seen anywhere else.
And it's been extremely useful over the years, for me anyway.
Well, I know you've built a configurable house in the CWG sandbox, and a lot of people don't think about houses as configurable, but that's an amazing model, Phil.
Yeah, and that one's interesting because it integrates into project systems, which is an interesting area of VC, I find, as well. And we hear through the rumor mill that the S4HANA sandbox will be coming, and that will have access to the AVC advanced configurator in that. So hopefully we'll see that, you would think, before the year is out anyway, if not a lot sooner.
Well, again, it's a volunteer organization, and the folks that are hosting that are a partner company.
Yep.
But again, it's not, they don't make any money off it.
No.
They're doing it almost as a service, just to be nice. It's been a long time coming, but hopefully, to your point, within the next 2-3 months, something will be released on the CWG website regarding the S4HANA sandbox.
And I think that would be a great step forward, not only for the community, but I think if the community engage with it, SAP will should get a lot of value out of it as well.
That's the problem. It's just like the internet, right? I've been on the internet since the early 90s, and typically 1% of the people post to the internet and 99% of the people lurk. And that's kind of what happens in the CWG as well. And I'd like to see that change, where 99% of the people engage and 1% of the people lurk.
I think we've had a pretty good overview of what's out there. I know we got a bit lost in the topic there for a little while.
That's because you're talking to me and I'm drinking.
Yeah, I do notice the pattern sometimes, Steve. Yeah, no.
It's Friday night, Phil.
Let's get back to the big screen just as we sign off anyway.
I look like crap, don't I?
What about me? I don't look too flash either.
Just remember, as my friend from France said, this guy needs a beer.
Okay, Steve, I think we'll just sign off on that saying this week, and I'll catch you maybe in a week's time.
Okay, Phil, take care of yourself. Stay safe. Enjoy your run.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy your beer.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.